This shall be called the house of worship. This shall be called the place of praise. This shall be called the place of Bethel. The place where God lives. Come on, sing it. The place where God lives.
Say what?
We're live.
Praise the Lord. We are live.
Amen.
What? Praise the Lord for the heads up. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday Night Live with Bethel. I am Pastor Lawrence Blackfoot Jr., Senior Pastor of the Bethel Baptist Church of Chicago Heights, and tonight we are continuing our conversation. As you all see, we have some more people in the conversation, or we have one more person in the conversation. Amen. We were supposed to have a couple more, but you know how that goes. So, how y'all doing tonight? Everybody good? Good. All right. All right. So, as you all know, the last couple of weeks, we have been having a conversation about re-engaging our modern worshipers. Our modern worshipers. That's the term that we are adopting thanks to Bishop Jakes and the team down to Pastor Tubman and those at the Potter's house. Hey, Paul. And so we have been engaging these young people to allow them to share their thoughts on their generation's perspective on the church and ministry and what the church can do better to serve their generation, but also what has helped to shape and form their views, some of the things that has happened in the church and happened with them personally to form their perspective on ministry. Some of them have grown up in the church, others have not. And so we are grateful to have with us once again tonight Miss Courtney. We have Lawrence III. And we have Levante. And so tonight, we are going to continue the dialogue. We're going to continue our conversation. And so as we start tonight, you all, we're going to spend a good portion of the dialogue tonight. I want to talk about the role of the church in social justice and addressing social justice issues. And so praise the Lord. Amen. So come on up here. Grab your chair, man. Come on. You're not too late. Come on, let's give it up. He's finally here, you all. He's here, you all. Everybody out there in live stream land, let's give it up. Let's give it up. The man of the hour, Mr. Bill. How you doing, bro? Good. Welcome. Come on around. This is Mr. Bill. He's joining us. Right? And did I say Bill? I said it right. Okay, praise the Lord. All right, amen. So as we have this conversation, we're now going to talk tonight. We want to talk about the role of the church in addressing some of the social justice issues that we are facing in our society. So if each one of you all, your perspective, what is the top social justice issue facing our country today? It's on.
In my opinion, the top social issue in this country today is, of course, treatment amongst our people. Mm-hmm. I believe that in the church
when you say treatment,
treated differently. I feel like a church setting we teach fairness, equal opportunity for everybody. Mm-hmm. I think that's how it should be. Mm-hmm. And although society thinks that it's under control, and really it's not, right. I still think that issue is going on. Whether it's because I'm a African-American role model for my school, and I'm the only African-American adult male in that school, so I try to be a role model for the kids, and I help them to understand that in the world that they live in, it's cool to express your emotions, talk, and keep them on the right path, because they're going to face these challenges growing up, and we got to be real with them. And I think that's what we got to try to teach them too, is that you have to be fair to everybody, you have to be kind to everybody. And that's what really I try to do for them each and every day. I pour my heart into them. I check on them every day to make sure that, you know, as they grow up, they're able to see role models, they're able to see what I do, they're able to see what you guys do.
Yes.
So that's one of the things I think about.
All right, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Good stuff. All right, so your top social justice issues, Miss Courtney.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and agree with our friend over here. I would definitely say treatment of our people, and that transcends into what we see in the media, of course. So we know gun control laws are not being regulated, they're not being attended to in our country, and people are able to do with that what they will. I think I saw in the media somewhere saying that this is about
I need you turn your mic a little. No, this part, right? Turn that with the dot towards your towards your mouth. The front part. There you go. Flip that over. There you go.
All right. Can you hear me now?
That much better.
All right.
Much better. Much better.
All right. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So I think I've seen something in the media that said this is like the 129th shooting that we've had in this country alone.
Yes.
And nothing is being done about it. I think it's just become a norm, and I would say especially amongst our people. We've become so desensitized to violence, not only amongst each other, but from others.
In general,
and,
yes.
So it's not being highlighted, we're focusing on other things. That's the biggest one.
All right. And Lawrence.
I would concur as well, the treatment of our people, and we say our people, African Americans in the country, people of color. I do believe that how we are portrayed in the media, but I also feel like economics is a huge issue, and we have to talk about funding, we have to talk about resources, we have to talk about, if we are going to talk about, and the big thing that's going on in Chicago is our youth and in the streets, and they call it riots or whatever you want to call it right now, but have we been allocating resources to people that look like us? Have we been investing in programs? What doors are open throughout the week for teens, for young adults to participate in? So allocating resources and funds to our community and not just taking them away from our community.
Okay. All right. Levante.
Can you reword the question?
So basically asking, in your opinion, what's the top social justice issue facing our country from your perspective?
Lawrence hit on it. He started with, I would call it systemic oppression.
Okay.
It would go into resources, funding, opportunity that we aren't given. And then I would say the role that the police plays versus the role that the police should play. Police brutality. That's a big, we all got social media, so we all see, we can get up close and more personal than we ever could before. So the role that the police are playing versus the role that we need them to play is causing a big barrier between the people of color and, American society, which is predominantly white.
All right. So we've had an opportunity to hear these modern worshipers, their perspective on some of the top issues facing our country. So now what I really want to do now is kind of dive a little bit deeper in on that issue or those issues and your perspectives. And so, Ms. Courtney, you talked about the number of mass shootings in the United States of America, which is somewhere around 132 odd mass shootings already this year, where lives are being taken. And so when we think about that as a social justice issue, what is the role of the church? What should the role of the church be in addressing this issue? Or do you have a perspective on what role the church should be playing?
That is a good question. I don't know. That is a really good question.
What do you want to see done in addressing this issue?
I think the most important thing really
You're good.
is education.
Okay.
I think that when it comes to, I know people have different perspectives on whether they should have a gun, whether they should protect their family. You know, self-preservation is number one. And I understand that. But I think it goes deeper. You need to educate people about what they're buying. You know, guns aren't toys. And I think that if the church should give a resource talking about the importance, you know, the safety that you have to understand when you even operate one, it's a good start.
Okay. Okay. The church's role. Anyone else want to chime in on this issue of guns?
I do like that. I like
mass
what you were saying as far
shootings?
as, you know, as far as safety, preservation of self, you know, guns are, you know, they're not like, you know, they have a negative annotation to them because of society today, but, you know, they can be very protective as far as families and you know, of that sort. So I would say having somewhere you can go for education on such a thing would be something that, you know, it's a fine line, but it is, you know, we don't have education on such things. So all we know is, you know, what we were showed via media and controlled outlets. So I like what you say as far as somewhere that can educate people on, you know, the uses and the needs for.
And so, go ahead, Lawrence.
I do agree with both of those. I also believe that when it comes to the issue of guns and gun control, that the church, and it's a fine line when you do have, you want to not have your church and politics, want to kind of keep those separate. But I don't believe that when a gunman can walk into a Christian school and kill people, that you can separate church and politics. So we have to...
And not just a Christian school, but any school.
Any school, correct. We have to figure out who, as far as our voting, our public officials, who's voting for guns and who's voting for gun control, and how do we hold our leaders that we vote in our community, because gun control disproportionately affects people that look like us. So we have to hold our elected officials accountable on the way that they vote for gun control.
That's good. That's good stuff. Bill, you have anything around gun control? Any comments?
I pretty much
Or
agree.
the gun issue?
Gun issue. I pretty much agree with everybody is saying. Me working for education system and then seeing that all these school shootings, recent ones a couple of weeks ago, it's scary to think about. And anytime I see one, it really hurts to see that, because it's a scary thing that can happen, that anybody can just own any type of weapon. And I think that there should be a law that laws control that, because I feel that you shouldn't own military style weapon. I mean, that's anybody's opinion, but if you have a weapon that can shred a tree, I just feel that it's just very unnecessary. And I agree with everybody said, we got to hold these elected officials very accountable. But I feel like this country doesn't push it enough. You know, they keep saying every year they're going to push it, and then it's like they never do, and it just gets worse and worse and worse.
So as an educator, when you see the mass shootings taking place, and you hear about it, you see it on the news, you may have your phone, and it flashes across your phone, and you're in the school in front of a classroom full of children, or watching these students at play, knowing what's happening at another learning institution, what goes through your heart, your mind in moments like that?
Very emotional. Anger, sadness, confusion. It's like, because even when I work for the community center over there, like, I pour my heart out to these kids, and I can't imagine if some crazy guy walked in and just started shooting, killing everybody.
Or girl.
Exactly. You know, I feel like this has happened in our country for so long, but I feel like it's getting worse, but it's also exposed more because we have the technology.
Yes, yes.
So news is being spread more. You'll be able to see all these videos.
Yes.
But as education, it's tough to see.
And so when we talk about social media and we look at the 24-hour news cycle that is rolling nonstop around the clock, especially when these things take place, you have coverage all day, every day, on every different segment of each station, every channel. You have people talking about the same issue and keeping it out there. And it goes back to the comment that you made earlier about becoming desensitized. And have any of you all had an experience where you were involved in a shooting incident that has impacted your life or perspective?
I think honestly, I never seen a shooting, but I've seen driven by like incidents where somebody was killed due to a gun.
Got it.
My grandparents, they still live in West Pullman. There's a couple of times I would come from the store with them, and I would see like a tarp over a car or a body in the car, and it would traumatize me. And then you look on the news and figure out what happened. But I don't think I've ever, well, thankfully, I've never seen or witnessed a shooting yet. But I cannot imagine the traumatization I would go through if I did.
That's a key word that you just used, trauma. Because when we think about these things, and anyone, if you all have any commentary on that, you can chime in. But trauma is what our community continues to experience as a result of the violence, both from within our community and then the trauma that comes from the violence inflicted upon our community from law enforcement, as we continue to see the cases of unarmed individuals or fleeing individuals who are gunned down. For example, the instance, the case that just happened down in Missouri, where young man, 8 officers fire 90 some odd rounds at this kid, hitting him 40 plus times as he's fleeing. So, you know, with that kind of force is excessive, and the decision, the grand jury, I believe it was, decided that these officers were justified. How does that make you feel when you hear about someone that looks like you being shot at 96 times and laying on the ground, gunned down, and officers still shooting? What goes through you?
It make you hesitant, which is, I believe, a part in the systemic oppression. It make you hesitant to deal with police officers in the future. And police officers have a job of aiding and protecting people. And so when you introduce this trauma connected to the people who are supposed to serve and protect, it's kind of like you have no one to call on. It's like the big brother you're supposed to have, you can't call on. And so a lot of times you find yourself in situations that, you know, the police should be able to help you out in, but you don't call them, you're scared to call them. And so it all plays back into that systemic oppression, in my opinion.
Okay, anyone else?
I'd like to feed off of that. I think it just makes you feel less than human. Like there's just millions and millions of dollars. I saw a billboard actually on social media, and it broke down how much money is spent in each sector of a community. Healthcare being the lowest, then it was libraries next, then it was healthcare, and then police had like $330 million spent. So you would think if we're giving, as a country, we're spending all this money, you would think adequate training to de-escalate a situation would be given. But unfortunately, it's not.
And you would think we would be safer.
You would think that, but no. Your first instinct shouldn't be to shoot and kill. It should be to evaluate the situation, evaluate where they are cognitively, and see where you can de-escalate.
Now, I have to say, and I am in agreement with you. Now, I also, having a criminal justice background, I also understand that police officers, yes, they have a job to do, but officers are injured in the line of duty. Most commonly, the most common reason or situation that happens is routine traffic stops and domestic calls, because they're going into situations in which they don't know what they're about to run into and experience. And so there's this heightened sense of concern when they approach some of these situations, and how we react and respond sometimes has a role to play. And I think that it's important that we address the fact that we have to conduct ourselves a certain way when we encounter law enforcement, understanding that that badge means something. Does not give them the right to take a life. Well, it actually does, because they do have the authority to use deadly force when justified. But what we are experiencing more often than not is instances where deadly force is not justified. Any thoughts?
I do believe that education on how to deal with officers is necessary within our community as well. But that is a part of community outreach on, I believe, the officers and the police departments. There should be funds allocated for community outreach. The first time an officer enters in the community should not be for domestic disturbance or for an issue. That cop should, if they are on the force, if they are seasoned, they should be patrolling the area. They should have a rapport with the community and build that trust within the community. When we put the responsibility on everyday citizens to have more composure, to have more, to be able to be more level-headed than paid, trained officers, and we hold them more accountable than the people that we are paying. And not only are we paying them in a salary, but when they do also make a mistake and kill somebody, then it is coming out of taxpayers' dollars to fund the millions and millions of dollars for police misconduct. So I do believe that, and this goes back to the initial question about what is the church's involvement in our role as a church in the social justice. We should be holding our police officers and our community activists accountable for not just responding when there's an issue, but when we have an event, we would want to see a police presence. When there is good in the community, we should have just as many officers on scene cheering for individuals that are graduating or that are accomplishing things. Just as many officers that we would see if somebody was pulled on the side of the road. And what I do see is if somebody's pulled over on the side of the road, 2 and 3 officers will stop at one car and engage in that individual. Sometimes they get out of the car, other times they do not. But if we had a response that when the middle schools in our communities graduate, that the police officers will show out, or if you're on duty, you'll show up to that graduation and you will welcome the next step and the next generation. That builds community rapport, and it, to Levante's point, it'll build that bond and take the little edge off when you do need to call an officer when you are in distress.
Okay. Did you have something that you want to share on that? So one of the things that, and I'm in agreement with that, and so what I wanted to always do is try to bring balance to the conversation. While we have to hold our officers accountable, right? what is your perspective about holding our people accountable for how we react, respond, and respect law enforcement?
I could say, this may be, a bit,
we want to hear from
ignorant.
you. We want to hear from you.
It may be a bit ignorant, but I don't get paid to deal with police. Police get paid to deal with me. So holding me to the same professionalism as somebody that's getting paid for the transaction or interaction, and I'm not. We shouldn't be held to the same level of professionalism.
Well, I'm not. It's not about professionalism. It's about going home at night. Mm-hmm. It's about saving lives. It's about teaching one another, encouraging one another to respect law enforcement so that you can live to see another day.
And I actually like that. I think, as we have in this podcast, you asked the question, what is a role the church can do, mm-hmm. As far as bridging the gap together. Churches hosting or having exactly what you're saying, a police interaction courses or certain things like that. That is something that, the church can do to, help out as far as social justice.
Okay. I like the idea of that. And as we are having these conversations and we're engaging our modern worshipers, this generation, we're not just here to talk about the issues, but also come up with solutions to some of these issues that we're facing. And I think that is a great way to address and an innovative way to bring the community together with law enforcement. And so that's something that I'm hoping our team is making a note of so that we can follow up on that and make that happen, because I think that is something that can begin to build the bridge between especially the African American community and law enforcement. Because I believe you stated it earlier, we don't want our only interaction with law enforcement to be negative when there is a problem and guns are drawn and things of that nature. So any other comments, anything that's pressing on your heart that you want to share about social justice, the role of the church, and where what we should be doing as a church, as a Christian community, as individuals in the social justice space? Anyone?
I know this is a little far-fetched, and I'm just thinking in my mind right now. But it's a lot of, you see a lot of times, and I know that you've dealt with a lot of kids who, delinquent. They don't have guidance, they mm-hmm. don't have proper role models, so they find themselves in a lot of, or in certain situations with the police or the justice system. Mm-hmm. And in those courtrooms, they have no support system. Mm. Nobody's showing up for these kids in the courtroom. Nobody's vouching and telling judges that this is a good kid and this kid has a place to go and a place to, that supports him. Mm-hmm. So I think the churches, if possible, a lot of these kids that don't have, a foundation, the church could play a foundation, especially, in times that is needed most, such as court hearings and things of that nature. And before court hearings, you might be able to keep a lot of kids out of these court hearings, just, being more hands-on, as far as, it's hard to explain. Yeah. I don't want to say,
and I would agree as well. One note that I made was for church, how often is your doors open, and does the community in the whole know that you are available, that if they are in need, that they can come? And I point back to current events right now. When you have hundreds of kids that are downtown in the heart of the city with nothing to do. It's boredom, it's let's meet up and whatever happens after that happens. But where can we as a church hold a open gym, hold something to where at least 10 of those kids have somewhere else to go? If 10 of those kids have somewhere else to go, they're at least telling their friends about another opportunity. And when you have not just one church, but you have multiple churches, which there's 7 days in the week. And if one church, as many churches as we have just down Lincoln Highway, if one church is open a week, on a weekday with some type of activities, there's sometimes you do sporting, sometimes it's games, but at the end of the day, it is putting resources and having a place for our youth to go that is not, because some parents are working, and with our economy and the prices of everything, parents can't be in the house with the kids all the time, but the kids have to know that, hey, I'm gonna go play basketball until this time, and after I've been playing basketball for 3 hours, the chances of me ripping and running the streets is going to diminish greatly, in my opinion.
And I think that it is very important that we have activities, outlets, resources available, and the church should play a role. And I want to say this, there are many churches who are playing this role in their community, providing safe spaces, peace circles, opportunities for the community to be able to come in. Even some municipalities are opening schools after hours and making them available for the community to be able to come in and utilize those spaces. What about those individuals who have those spaces available and still do the things that we see happening? Because I don't want us to make excuses for the kind of behavior that we are seeing, in particular in Chicago, where mobs of people gather in downtown Chicago, in the heart of the business districts and things like that, and just go wild. That is not acceptable. And I don't want us to diminish that by any stretch. And we need to, that's where we hold us accountable. We have to say that is not who we are. We are better than that. There are resources available. There are other things that we could be doing. What are your thoughts?
I've spoken enough, so I'm gonna let somebody else go first.
You guys have all made good points. In my opinion, I think first and foremost is in the household. I think that's where it starts. But again, not all households, at least some of my kids, a lot of them don't have fathers, and I can tell with the way they act.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the least things that a lot of these youth have. They don't have that mother, they don't have that father to like show them the right way and what to do. And so I think that's where it starts, is to catch them at an early age, or even as a teenager, let them know like, hey, I'm doing this out of love, and make sure that when you grow up, you won't have such a hard time. And I love it, and I do that. I enjoy to do that, but at the same time, also where I work at, I extended basketball season. I'm giving a tryout for fourth graders, because a lot of these kids, they don't have enough to do sometimes. Like, I've seen some messing around the streets late at night, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you guys so late? You're 10 years old.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't make sense. So, again, if you provide something into these communities, that's why I love the church setting, because it builds, you get to know everybody. Like, you come to church, you get to meet more new people. I know for a fact that when we hold events at Oak Glen, we have a lot of police officers there, and we get to meet them. I have the kids meet the police officers. And I think first and foremost, that's what we need the most, is community, structure. And I think that's where it starts. Now, I don't defend a lot of these behaviors, because I don't tolerate disrespect at all. But I will say to them that if you keep being disrespectful at this age, you're going to have a very, very hard time.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. That's good. That's a good point. Ms. Courtney, anything?
I agree with everything he said. He worded it perfectly.
Okay. And so when we think about, yes, Levante.
So I'm gonna be the voice, I'm an empath, especially I empathize with, the journey, the things that black people have gone through. I don't think, we do need to hold ourselves accountable But the first thing we need to do is realize how much trauma over the generations have rolled over into this generation. So holding yourself accountable, but you have baggage that has been, you know, your grandfather's traumas rolled into you. It's hard to just say, you know, you gotta have some sense, you know. So the first thing we need to do is to realize that, you know, we have traumas. And it goes back to systemic oppression. I'm gonna say that word a lot, especially in this conversation. But, you know, it was an article and a black family got their house appraised, and they had about $400,000 appraisal, and then they took all of their family pictures out and then asked their white family to get the house appraised with their pictures in it, and it got appraised for like $100,000 more. And that same thing goes into, you know, bank loans. A black man going to the bank looking for a loan, and, you know, the same resume as a white man, he'll get approved for less. So opportunities are not as frequent as the white man.
We did that.
Again.
Yeah.
And it's machines, it's a system, you know, everything that they put in front of, you know, the kids are chosen, you know. So even the music that is being played over the radios, you know, it's systematically being chosen. Negative music, you know, negative influence being the only thing that kids see on TV and hear. You know, like I was just saying with a bank loan, it's harder to be a businessman. You know, growing up, you think that it's either I'm gonna play sports or I'm gonna win the lottery to become successful. Not true, but that's, you know, a part of the trauma and the systemic oppression. So I feel like, and this can tie back into the church, you know, being a resource to broaden horizons. You know, kids believing that the only way to, you know, be successful or take care of their families would be a basketball or music or rapping or things like that. And then, you know, the machines that are pushing the music industry are, you know, promoting the violent. It's a chosen thing that they're promoting. So it's kind of like a trap. I'm not saying that we should not take responsibility and accountability for our actions, but you got to realize that the odds are stacked against us as black people.
And everyone being on this platform can identify with that latter statement, that we start out behind our white counterparts and have to work twice as hard to get half as much. And so I get that. There are a number of things. Trauma is something that we have to address, because trauma impacts us oftentimes even when we don't know it impacts us. And so I believe that if anybody can speak to the impact of trauma on us would be Courtney. So talk about trauma and its impact on our community.
Well, I know we had the conversation last week about mental health being important. And so back to Levante's point, like not addressing it in the home is where it starts. I know that it presents different ways. It may be angry outbursts. It might be frustrations with all the things that are going around, all the things you see, all the things children see, and they absorb it. Children are sponges. And so if you grow and you grow and you grow and you never see different, you never learn how to either cope with those traumas or find ways around them to deal with them, you're just going to keep doing them. You're going to keep thinking it's the right way, and you're going to be in go from a child with trauma to an adult with trauma.
Yes.
And so if it doesn't get challenged, it just won't.
And so when we think about trauma, I'm working with an entity called Live Free Illinois. And so part of the work that we've been doing over the last year has been fighting to get funding to I'm 51 years old. And every time I see, what you say? Wow. And every time I'm driving and those blue and red lights are behind me,
We get nervous.
whether they're getting ready to pull me over or not, my heart starts to race because I've had experiences with law enforcement and officers who do not follow the law that they are paid to uphold. And so that's traumatic. And so we have been fighting to bring resources, and we recently were awarded some funding to create centers, community healing centers in communities throughout the state of Illinois. So part of the work that we're doing and things that we're getting ready to do right now is start creating peace circles, doing events to bring families together, to not only just have a good time and get out and enjoy and release, but also bringing in professionals to help address the mental health issues, the trauma that many families are facing, and being a resource where individuals who are and families who are dealing with trauma know that they can come to this church, as well as we have 13 churches in the state of Illinois that have received this funding and are a part of this pilot program. And we are one of the ones that were funded for. And so we are doing some things as a church, but there's so much more that we can do. Mm-hmm. And what we really want to do is we want to hear and we welcome your ideas and your thoughts. Some have been shared on this platform tonight on things that the church can do and how we can open up our doors more often. Provide events and resources to help bring the community together. And so when we think about the issue of social justice, I heard you all mention tonight gun violence, how we as a people are treated in these United States of America. I heard systematic oppression, systematic racism, the lack of funding and resources, the lack of police officers being more engaged in our community outside of making arrests and following up on calls and things like that. These are some things that we can address, that we can speak to. We can then now come up with a plan, and there is no better group to come up with ideas and ways to now push these ideas forward, because we know what the problem is. It's about the solution. Bill, as you were talking, you talked about some of the challenges that students face by not having a father in the home. Being raised oftentimes in single parent households. One of the things that I want to also bring out is the number of students and young people who are in the system, foster care, in the care of DCFS. And so we're dealing with a major issue in that space as well. You mentioned, Levante, about when our young people, especially children, find themselves in the justice system, creating justice diversion programs to keep them or divert them from having to come before a judge, but also when they have to come before a judge, having support. That's innovative thinking. That's something that the church could be a part of. We as a people can support and get behind and find that partnership where we can network with our local judicial systems, courthouses, where we can be more engaged in those hearings, because that's the first time that I've heard an idea put forth like that. And so again, I appreciate you all and your thoughts on these issues. Now, I want you all, as we continue the dialogue with you all, your generation, about the issues and how the church can better serve your generation, I want you all to talk to me and to our listening audience about those things that really hit you here.
Okay. So it's kind of, how the world changes with time. Everything changes. Nothing is consistent with time. Back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, don't quote my time.
You was there, huh?
No, one of my peoples was. Your daddy might have been. But it was get a job at 12, 13 years old. You be working in a factory when you're 12, 13 years old. You put 50, 60, I don't know how many hours, but you work really hard. You go home, your wife is supposed to have dinner on the table and ready. It was a whole lot of societal norms, that are totally different, with time. So, the same way that, what is it called? Society changes. I think, the church needs to evolve as well. Interests change throughout society. And so, with the trend, society makes up the church. So, if society is changing, the church has to evolve as well. Everybody isn't working 30 years and retiring, E-commerce is a thing. Some people, can make money sitting at home. The way that making money looks different nowadays. So I think church can look different, the way that services are held can look different, just an evolution.
Give an example of how you see church looking different.
I could tell, changes are happening. Right now people are tuning in from home. So, the church is evolving, which is good. And, I would have to put more time into it. I might be able to think of a beautiful idea on the spot, but I ain't gonna go fishing.
You was on the road for a minute. Yeah.
But you know what I mean, though.
Yeah, I know what
y'all get what I mean.
Yeah, I was just trying to.
We ain't working in the factory 40 years, and our wife better have dinner. Our wives work jobs, and males cook dinner now. So the same way that society and cause and effect. That changes. Perspective. Men don't have the same interest as men from a prior generation. Things are different. So I think the church just needs to be more, open to evolution, just as, society is. And I'm gonna think of a good idea.
Okay. We're gonna be right here. We're gonna be right here waiting on that idea. Anyone else?
I'm gonna give you some.
What is that thing that really is that burning issue for you that you feel passionate about, that you want to see change or do different? Anybody?
I'm trying to expand on what I was just going for. I think, it's, so to speak, acceptance of difference. And everybody does not struggle with this. Some people are very accepting, all pastors don't look and dress the same.
That's right.
Everybody in the congregation don't come from the same thing, working a full week and coming to church on some days. Some people have been struggling. Everybody is different. So, acceptance is one big thing that is always, should be high priority in the church. It's not to make people feel comfortable, but to make people feel accepted in their situation. Okay. How you, last service, I attended, you said, thank God that he ain't through with me yet, so I think acceptance of people in their situation is a thing that the church can always strive to be better and do better at.
That was one of the things Jesus did, is he accepted people for where they were. It didn't mean that he was okay with what they were doing, but he loved them right where they were. And that's something that we promote here and we stress. You were about to say something, Lawrence?
Yeah, something that like is really tugging on me is making the church more visible. I feel like the church for a long time has been confined to 4 walls, to a Sunday morning, to a 10 a.m. hour, or 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock service. That, like Levante said, the church has to change. Sometimes church might have to be held in a church parking lot. During COVID, we figured out that you can have church from the rooftop, from the parking lot, from anywhere. So when we have a visible church and acts in the community, tangible things can be associated with Bethel or with the church or with Christianity or the community, that is where we reach souls. Church may have to happen in a public parking lot or Walmart or somewhere to where it's not.
That's some good
We
stuff.
we have the technology to do it, but if we are trying to reach, and our physical church building is not on the main road, so unless we have a billboard or a sign that's pointing to our church, our only way to get people is word of mouth or tell somebody, share it on social media. But when you go to a place where people are and the people that you are looking for, which is why I go back to schools, if we are trying to reach the youth, then every school in our immediate area should know about the programs that Bethel offer. Every elementary school, every middle school, every high school should know that. So a teacher, Bill, if he sees a student that has inkling for technology or is good with their hands and has that ability for the trades, the teacher can, hey, I can talk to this parent, or I can recommend Bethel to their youth build program or an IT program. But making sure that everybody outside of Bethel in our community, and it starts with our immediate community, that is where it starts, in our home, our immediate community, and then we can reach further people. But schools and the areas within us around our area need to know, hey, Bethel offers these resources. If you are struggling with mental health, if you need help with bills or finances, if you need resume building or want to join the trade, I know exactly where I can find those resources. I can point you to the direction. Here's a phone number, here's something for that. So just making the church more visible outside of the physical church building.
Excellent. That was good. And many of those things we are actually doing that you have named. And so one of the things that I have to own is the fact we have to do a better job marketing and just getting our information out and being out there talking about and sharing what we actually do. And there are many other churches that are doing some great things. And so maybe one of you all or somebody watching will come up with that idea and way that we can highlight the great things that the faith community is doing and our community as a whole. Maybe it's not churches, maybe it's just nonprofits or families or individuals who are doing some good, and a way to highlight those things that people are doing to make a difference in our society in a positive way. All right. Anything else? Anything else you want to share?
Only I say these two did a very good job on that is church brings a positive environment. I love when pastors integrate current issues that somebody at home is dealing with, like bills, a sudden family tragedy, because that really helps me. You combine God and speaking about the issues that's going on in people's lives very well.
Relevant.
I think that, I forgot to talk about this because Devontae opened up to it. Mental health is one of the top issues in the Black community, I feel like.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that you should be able to talk about the things you're going. That's one of the things I did. That's how I became better. Is I was able to talk about the issues I would deal with, open up to somebody, whether it was a pastor.
Yes.
A lot of people in the church environment I've opened up to about some of the issues I'm dealing with, and that goes to youth, teenagers, and adults too.
Yes.
So when you come to church, you get to meet more new people. You can talk about your issues, and I think that is number one. For me, that's number one.
Mental
Always
health.
is mental health.
Yes, yes.
Okay, because a lot of these kids with some of the things that they're doing, and then when I look, even at my job, there's a lot of kids that like, why is he acting like this? And then I go back to his backstory when I hear it, I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'll be able to solve all your problems right away, but I can help you. Because I may not know what you're going through, but I'm here to support you, I'm here to help you. And I think that's what the good thing the church does. So I think that's a good way to do it. But these two highlight it pretty well.
And that mental health component is something here at Bethel that we stress all the time. We understand, my wife and I are great proponents of mental health services and getting the help that you need. And that means sitting down with individuals, a pastor or a church leader, but also getting the professional help that we need. My wife and I, we talk about this. We have a counselor. We have someone that we go and see. We have a psychiatrist and a psychologist. Well, I have a psychiatrist and a psychologist. My wife did, she hasn't evolved to the psychiatrist side. But because I have some challenges that I have dealt with and struggled with, I needed to access those resources and services. And because of it, I have what I need to help me overcome some of the challenges that I have had to deal with. And we will talk about that on a future conversation where we dive deeper into this mental health space. But I don't shy away from that. I don't hide it, because at the end of the day, we all struggle with something. We all struggle with something. And no one should have to struggle alone, and you should not have to mask your struggle in order to make other people feel comfortable or accept you. You can struggle and still be strong, smart, intelligent, and successful, and we see it every day in our society. So if you are struggling with any kind of mental health challenge, we want to encourage you to talk to someone. If my wife was here, she would tell you to dial, and we'll put the number up on the screen.
988.
Bingo! There you go, 988, because I was about to say 833. Y'all would have been in trouble. But dial 988 if you're having any mental health challenges, if you are considering suicide, feeling like you don't want to live anymore. Reach out to someone near you, and if you don't have someone near you, dial 988, but get the help that you need. Get the help. We all need help, and I believe that everyone should have a counselor. I believe that everyone should have a counselor. Are you all hearing me? Everyone should have a counselor. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are, because the trauma that we've been talking about tonight impacts us all. And you cannot fix trauma on your own. On that note, we're going to let Levante have another comment.
I love what you were saying. No. And a lot of times traumas go unnoticed. And the traumas that, you don't notice are a lot of times the most dangerous ones. So to branch off of everyone, you need a counselor, and everyone has gone through trauma. The traumas, a lot of them, like I say, are subtle. And the results of the trauma, you won't even see it for 15 to 20 years. So, just branching off of everyone needs a counselor. I second that. Everybody. Amen.
All right. So I expect everybody up here to have, and if you don't have, get a counselor, psychiatrist, psychologist, someone that you can go sit down and talk with. And you too, you go and find someone that you can talk to about the challenges that you are facing, and know that God created you to be an overcomer, and that even though you may have some challenges, I want to dispel this as we close, because there are people that'll say that if you are dealing with anxiety or depression or bipolar or schizophrenia, that's a spirit and we got to cast that spirit out. You don't cast out diabetes. You ain't casting out arthritis. You go get to the doctor and get help for those things. And so I'm saying, stop demonizing, stop criticizing and ostracizing people because they are facing challenges. Direct them and help them get the resources and the help that they need. We go to the doctor for our back, our neck, our head, our eyes, whatever, our sinuses. We need to be able to go and get the help we need for our mental health, our emotion, and our social ability to deal with life and its challenges that we all face. On that note, thank you all so much. Bill, Courtney, Lawrence, Levante. It got heavy in here tonight, you all. But these are the things that we need to talk about. This is the conversation that we need to have. And we're going to be inviting others to come along and join us. We're going to continue this conversation next week. Tell somebody else to log in. Share this on Facebook, on YouTube. Share this with others that need to hear this conversation. And if you'd like to be a part of our live audience, join us right here in the building next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Be here at 6:30 because I know seats are going to fill up next week, because we're going to continue to get real. We're going to have others joining the conversation. We're going to be bringing law enforcement in. This is something that we need to have. Look, we need to bring law enforcement in and have the conversation with law enforcement. We need to bring some judges in here to have conversations with their role in the court system. There are others that need to be a part of the conversation, and we have to understand, people of God, it's not us against them. We have to learn how to coexist and recognize we all need one another in order to make our society better and to live and make it and get through the trauma. We want to thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Pastor Lawrence Blackful Jr. with my guest, Levante Blackful. Lawrence Blackful the third, Landon Blackful, Mr. Bill, and Miss Courtney. Thank you all for being with us. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for sharing your heart. Thank you for being a part of this conversation, and we'll continue it next week. God bless you, and we'll see you next time.
This shall be called the house of